Tonkawa and Wichita traditions, ceremonies, and beliefs. The native nations of the Central Texas Plains, language isolate, Caddoan Confederacy, and the sacred world of the South Central Prairie. The Tonkawa spoke a language isolate, a language with no known relatives anywhere on Earth, suggesting their ancestors lived in Texas for longer than any linguistic comparison can measure. The Wichita built grass-thatched dome villages on the Red River and cultivated corn in a land most thought could not sustain it. Both nations survived the full violence of the colonial period into the present day. Personal Reading Series Haligrisity, June 2026. IQ Productions. A Note on Sacred Knowledge and Sovereignty. Introduction. Two Nations of the Texas-Oklahoma Plains. Part 1. The Tonkawa. Part 1. Who the Tonkawa are. Identity and the language isolate. Part 2. Tonkawa Territory, the Central Texas Plains. Part 3. Tonkawa Cosmology, the Sacred World. Part 4. The Coyote and Tonkawa Sacred Tradition. Part 5. Tonkawa Social Organization, Bands, and Leadership. Part 6. The Wolf Dance Ceremony, Step by Step. Part 7. Tonkawa Death Practices and the Sacred Relationship with the Dead. Part 8. Tonkawa Medicine and Healing Practices. Part 9. The Hasinai Alliance and Tonkawa Relationships. Part 10. The Tonkawa Massacre and its Aftermath. Part 11. Contemporary Tonkawa, the Tonkawa Tribe of Oklahoma. Part 2. The Wichita. Part 12. Who the Wichita are, Identity and the Caddoan Confederacy. The Wichita Confederacy, 5 bands, 1 people. Part 14. Wichita Territory, the Red River to the Arkansas. Part 15. Wichita Cosmology, Kinnicasis, and the Sacred World. Part 16. Man Never Known on Earth, the Wichita Creator. Part 17. The Wichita Grass Lodge, Sacred Architecture. Part 18. The Morning Star Ceremony, Step by Step. Part 19. The Hand Game, Sacred Competition. Part 20. Wichita Agricultural Sacred Practice, Corn, Beans, and Squash. Part 21. The First Fruit Ceremony, the Ghost Dance, and Wichita, Sacred Eschatology. Part 24. Contemporary Wichita and Affiliated Tribes. The Haligrisity Land and Sacred Survival. A Note on Sacred Knowledge and Sovereignty. Both the Tonkawa Tribe of Oklahoma and the Wichita and Affiliated Tribes are living nations with contemporary governments, ongoing cultural practices, and specific decisions about what sacred knowledge is appropriate to share publicly. This document presents what has been documented in public scholarly and tribal cultural resources, restricted ceremonial content, specific sacred songs and prayers, and knowledge designated as community-held are not included. Both nations hold specific knowledge as sovereign intellectual property, and this document is written to honor that sovereignty. The Tonkawa, people of the South Central Texas Plains. Part 1. Who the Tonkawa are, Identity and the language isolate. The Tonkawa are a Native American people of the South Central Texas Plains whose most linguistically significant characteristic is also their most historically important identity marker. The Tonkawa language is a language isolate, a language with no demonstrated genealogical relationship to any other language family on Earth. This linguistic isolation suggests an antiquity of Texas presence that places the Tonkawa among the most ancient inhabitants of the region. The Tonkawa language isolate, significance. A language isolate occurs when a language cannot be connected to any known language family through the regular correspondence of sounds and grammatical structures that linguists use to establish genealogical relationship. The world has only about a dozen true language isolates: Basque in Europe, Burushaski and Pakistan Zuni in the American Southwest, and the Tonkawa language of Texas are among the most studied. What the isolate tells us: when a language has no demonstrable relatives, it usually means one of two things. Either the language's relatives all went extinct before any records were made, or the language's speakers have been in their territory for so long that any relationship to other languages has been obscured beyond recovery. For the Tonkawa, the most plausible interpretation is the latter. The Tonkawa may have been in central Texas for significantly longer than most neighboring peoples, long enough that their original linguistic relatives went extinct thousands of years ago. The language today, the Tonkawa language, was nearly extinguished by the Tonkawa Massacre of 1862 and subsequent population decline. Revitalization efforts, including documentation work and community language programs, have been conducted by the Tonkawa Tribe of Oklahoma. The language is critically endangered but not extinct. Tonkawa cosmology, the sacred world, and the coyote. Tonkawa cosmology, reconstructed primarily from ethnographic accounts gathered in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, from oral tradition maintained by tribal members, and from ceremonial records, presents a sacred universe organized around the relationship between the earth, the sky, and specific powerful animals whose sacred roles shape the conditions of human existence. The Tonkawa sacred world. The creator, the Tonkawa, recognize a primary creative force, Accounts vary in specific names, but consistently describe a sky-dwelling divine being who established the original conditions of the world. The relationship between this created through specific sacred specialists and through the specific ceremonies that maintained right relationship. The coyote appears in Tonkawa's sacred narrative in the role of trickster transformer, the being whose unpredictable and often self-defeating cleverness simultaneously creates disruption and inadvertently produces the specific features of the world that the Creator's straightforward plan did not include. The Tonkawa coyote narrative tradition establishes the trickster as essential to the world's completeness. A world without coyotes' disruptions would be a world without the specific complexity and adaptability that human life requires. The wolf holds a specific sacred role in Tonkawa's sacred tradition. The coyote's trickster role does not. The wolf represents directed power, the hunt, and the specific sacred compact between human hunters and the animal world. The wolf dance, important surviving ceremonial expression of this relationship. The four directions, like most plains peoples, the Tonkawa oriented their sacred world through the four cardinal directions, each associated with specific powers, specific winds, specific qualities. Sacred ceremony was conducted with specific orientation to these directions. The wolf dance ceremony step by step. The wolf dance is the most important and most well-documented surviving Tonkawa ceremonial form, a ceremony that honors the wolf's sacred role as the spiritual patron of the hunt, maintains the sacred compact between the Tonkawa people and the wolf nation, and expresses through movement, song, and specific sacred action the Tonkawa's understanding of the human being's place in the web of relationships that constitutes the living world. The wolf dance, step by step. Preparation, the ceremony leaders determine the appropriate time for the wolf dance, traditionally connected to the hunting season and to specific astronomical or community events that signal the ceremony's need. Participants prepare through fasting and specific personal purification. The wolf dance regalia are prepared and checked. The sacred ground or ceremonial space is prepared, cleared, oriented to the four directions, and opened through specific preliminary prayers. The ceremony, the opening songs, the ceremony begins with specific songs that call the wolf's spirit presence into the ceremonial space. These songs acknowledge the wolf's sacred role and formally invite the wolf nation's participation. Step 2, the entry of the dancers. Dancers enter in specific order, wearing regalia that incorporates wolf elements. The entry itself is ceremonial, specific movements that replicate wolf movement as the dancers enter the space. Step 3, the hunt enactment. The central portion of the dance enacts the sacred hunt, the pursuit and successful taking of game, not as theatrical performance, but as ceremonial renewal of the compact between human hunters and the animal world. The specific movements, the specific songs that accompany each phase, and the specific spatial patterns of the dance all carry specific sacred meaning. The address to the wolf. At specific points in the ceremony, the ceremonial leaders directly address the wolf spirit, acknowledging the wolf's gifts, expressing gratitude for the wolf's role as teacher of the hunt, and renewing the specific obligations the Tonkawa hold toward the wolf nation. Step 5, the community participation. As the ceremony progresses, the broader community participates through specific songs, specific responses, and specific actions that express collective acknowledgement of the sacred compact being renewed. Step 6, the closing. The ceremony closes with specific farewell songs to the wolf spirit, thanking the wolf nation for their participation, and formally releasing the ceremonial space back to ordinary time. Tonkawa death practices the sacred relationship with the dead. Tonkawa death practices, which include specific burial protocols, specific mournies, and specific restrictions around the dead, reflect a sacred understanding of death as a threshold transition that requires specific ceremonial management to protect both the deceased spirit and the living community. Tonkawa death and mourning, documented practices. Burial practices. The Tonkawa traditionally buried their dead, typically in the ground, in specific positions with specific grave goods that the deceased would need in the afterlife. The specific goods varied by the individual's status and specific sacred relationships. Mourning restrictions. Following a death, specific family members observed specific mourning restrictions, avoiding certain foods, certain activities, and certain social interactions for a defined period. These restrictions protected the mourning family from spiritual vulnerability during the transition period, when the deceased spirit was completing its departure from the ordinary world. The taboo on the deceased's name. Following death, the deceased's name was not spoken. Using the name could attract the spirit back or prevent it from completing its transition. This practice is documented across many Plains peoples and reflects a consistent understanding of personal names as spiritually significant. The sacred account of cannibalism, historical accounts of Tonkawa ceremonial cannibalism, consuming parts of slain enemies, are among the most contested and most misused elements of Tonkawa history. The Spanish and American colonial accounts that document this practice are the primary sources, and their reliability and interpretive framework are questioned by contemporary Tonkawa people and by anthropologists, who note that accounts of enemy cannibalism were routinely used by colonial powers to justify the treatment of indigenous peoples. What can be said of the practice, if it occurred, appears to have been a specific ceremonial act related to the treatment of enemies rather than ordinary practice. The Wichita, builders of the grass lodge villages, the Caddoan Confederacy of the Red River. Part 12. Who the Wichita are, identity, and the Caddoan Confederacy. The Wichita are a Caddoan language-speaking people who historically occupied the southern Great Plains, the Red River Valley of present-day Oklahoma and Texas, and who built one of the most distinctive architectural traditions in the region, the dome-shaped grass-thatched lodge village. The Wichita Confederacy, 5 bands. The Wichita Nation is a confederacy of 5 closely related Caddoan-speaking bands who shared language, sacred traditions, and cultural practices while maintaining distinct political identities. Wichita proper, the central band, and the one whose name came to designate the entire confederacy. The city of Wichita, Kansas, is named for them. The Wichita maintained semi-permanent villages in the Wichita Mountains area and along the Arkansas River at various points in their history. Waco, a southern band who historically occupied the central Texas area, maintaining villages along the Brazos River. The city of Waco, Texas, takes its name from this band. Tawakoni, an eastern band of the Wichita Confederacy, historically occupying the area of present-day East Texas and Oklahoma. Kichai, a band closely related to the Wichita proper, but sometimes identified separately in historical records. Iskani, the least documented of the 5 bands, historically occupied the southern portions of the Wichita's territory. The Caddoan language family, the Wichita language, belongs to the Caddoan family, the same family as Caddo, Arikara, and Pawnee. The Caddoan peoples, despite occupying a vast geographic range from the Gulf Coast to the northern plains, share specific linguistic and cultural features that connect them as a broader cultural grouping. Wichita cosmology, Kinnicasis, and man never known on Earth. Wichita cosmology presents a richly layered sacred universe in which the Creator, called man never known on Earth, created the world through a series of delegated creative acts, and in which the relationship between the sky world, the earth, and the underworld is maintained through specific ceremony and specific right living. The Wichita, sacred world. Man never known on Earth, the Wichita creator, whose specific name emphasizes his transcendence and his distance from the ordinary human world, is nevertheless deeply involved in human affairs through the specific intermediaries he established. The name itself is theologically sophisticated. It acknowledges that the ultimate creative force is beyond direct human knowing while maintaining that this force is real, and that relationship with it is both possible and essential. The morning star, the planet Venus in its pre-dawn appearance, is one of the most important sacred beings in Wichita cosmology, and is the central figure of the most important Wichita ceremony. The morning star is understood as the specific representative of man never known on Earth in the visible world, the divine's most direct presence in the human visual experience. The evening star is the complementary sacred being to the morning star, female to the morning star's male, associated with the West and with the powers of the underworld and water. The Wichita sacred cosmology organizes the relationship between the sky powers and the water powers as the primary structuring duality of existence. The 4 directions, as with most plains peoples, the 4 directions are sacred orientations, each with its own colors, its own winds, its own sacred qualities. Is primary. The West is primant. The Wichita Grass Lodge sacred architecture is cosmological map. The Wichita Grass Lodge, the large dome-shaped structure built from a framework of wooden poles thatched with bundles of grass, typically 30 to 50 feet in diameter, is one of the most architecturally distinctive and most cosmologically expressive buildings in the Native American tradition of the Southern Plains. N. Coronado encountered the Wichita in 1541. He described their villages as containing many such structures arranged in specific patterns along the river. The Grass Lodge is sacred cosmos. The dome is heaven. The dome structure of the Grass Lodge replicates the shape of the sky. Living within the dome is living within a model of the cosmos, with the smoke hole at the apex corresponding to the center of the heavenly dome above. The central fire below the smoke hole connects the earth center to the sky center, enacting the axis mundi, the world's central axis connecting below and above. The entrance orientation, the lodge's entrance, is oriented toward the east, toward the rising sun and the morning star's appearance. Every entry and exit moves through the sacred orientation that connects the interior domestic space to the cosmic order. The interior organization, the interior space, is organized by sacred direction. Specific areas for specific activities, specific places for specific family members and ceremonial objects. The organization is not merely practical, but a specific enactment of the cosmological order in domestic space. The construction is ceremony. Building a grass lodge was itself a communal sacred act, the specific order of construction, the specific songs and prayers at specific stages. And the community labor required made the building process a ceremony of community identity and cosmological acknowledgement. The Morning Star Ceremony, step by step. The Morning Star Ceremony is the most important and most studied Wichita sacred ceremony, an annual ceremony honoring the morning star, whose specific form and specific sacred content reflect the Wichita's most developed cosmological understanding. The ceremony has been significantly affected by colonial pressure, and some aspects were discontinued or modified in the 19th century. What is documented here reflects the scholarly and tribal record of the ceremony's original form and contemporary practice. The Morning Star Ceremony, step by step. Timing: the ceremony was traditionally timed to the specific astronomical appearance of the morning star, Venus, at its most prominent pre-dawn appearance in the eastern sky. The astronomical precision required to determine this timing reflects the Wichita's sophisticated observational tradition. Preparation: ceremonial leaders, particularly those associated with the Morning Star bundle, prepare through fasting and purification. The sacred bundle is opened and its contents are renewed. The specific objects within the bundle are checked, replenished where necessary, and prepared for their ceremonial use. The specific regalia required for the ceremony is prepared and assembled. The ceremony, step 1, the night vigil. The ceremony begins the night before the morning star's appearance. The ceremonial leaders and specific participants spend the night in prayer, song, and specific sacred actions that open the ceremonial space and invite the morning star's presence. Step 2, the sacred songs. Throughout the night, specific songs are sung that tell the story of the morning star's sacred role, his relationship with man never known on earth, his gift of sacred knowledge to the Wichita people, and the specific sacred compact that the ceremony renews. Step 3, the pre-dawn preparation. As the night deepens toward the rise of the day, specific preparations are made for the morning star's appearance. The ceremonial space is oriented toward the east. Specific sacred objects are positioned. Step 4, the morning star's appearance. When Venus appears on the eastern horizon, the ceremony reaches its peak intensity. Specific songs and specific actions acknowledge the morning star's presence and express the community's gratitude for the divine's continued engagement with human affairs. Step 5, the dawn prayers. As the sun rises following the morning star, specific dawn prayers are offered, acknowledging the continuity from the star's appearance to the sun's rising as the daily expression of the divine's sustaining attention. Step 6, the feast and community gathering. The ceremony closes with communal eating and gathering. The sharing of food is the most fundamental expression of community gratitude and continued relationship. The first fruits ceremony, sacred agricultural practice, step by step. The Wichita practiced a sophisticated form of agriculture on the southern plains, cultivating corn, beans, and squash in the fertile bottomlands along the Red River and its tributaries. This agricultural practice was unusual among their plains neighbors and required specific sacred ceremonial support. The first fruit ceremony expressed the community's acknowledgement that the agricultural abundance came through specific sacred relationship and required specific sacred acknowledgement. The first fruit ceremony, step by step. The tapu on new crops, like the Hopi's relationship with the Kachinas and the Alabama Coushatta's green corn ceremony. The Wichita maintained a specific restriction on eating the new crop before the first fruit ceremony formally released it. The new corn was sacred and tapu until ceremonially offered to the morning star and the Creator. Step 1, the selection of the first ears. The most perfect ears of the new corn are selected from the fields. The specific selection process involves prayer and specific attention to which ears manifest the strongest sacred presence. Step 2, the offering. The selected ears are offered to the morning star, placed in the specific orientation that acknowledges the morning star as the mediator between the Creator's blessing and the earth's productivity. Step 3, the ceremonial first eating. The ceremony leaders formally eat the first portion of the new corn. This act releases the tapu on the new crop for the entire community. Step 4, the distribution. The new corn is prepared and distributed to every household, the community sharing in the new year's first agricultural abundance simultaneously. Step 5, the seeds for next year. Specific ears are set aside, not for eating but for the following year's planting. These seeds are treated as sacred objects through the winter months, stored in specific ways and planted with specific ceremony in the following spring. Step 6, the Thanksgiving songs. The ceremony closes with specific songs of gratitude, addressed to the earth, to the rain, to the morning star, and to man never known on earth for the abundance of the season. The Haligrisity lends language, land, and sacred survival. The Tonkawa and Wichita traditions together offer Haligrisity two complementary gifts. The Tonkawa's language isolate as the most extreme available example of the sacred relationship between a people and their land across deep time, and the Wichita's morning star cosmology as one of the most astronomically sophisticated and most cosmologically complete available expressions of the Haligrisity understanding that the sacred world is not separate from the visible world, but continuously present within it, if the practitioner knows where to look. The language isolate and the sacred land relationship. The Tonkawa language isolate, a language with no known relatives, is the most linguistically extreme available expression of what the Haligric tradition holds about the relationship between a people and their specific land. When a people have been in a specific place long enough that their language has lost all demonstrable connection to any other language family, they have been in that place long enough that the land and the language have grown together into a single organism. The Tonkawa's language and the Central Texas Plains are not two separate things. They are the same thing expressed through two different media. The land shaped the language encodes the land's specific sacred knowledge. The morning star and the Haligric sacred calendar. The Wichita's use of Venus's appearance as the anchor point of their most sacred ceremony, watching for the planet's specific astronomical position to determine the ceremony's timing, conducting the all-night vigil in anticipation of the star's appearance, and orienting the entire ceremony's peak to the moment of Venus's rising, is the Southern Plains equivalent of what the Irish Druids did at Newgrange, and what the Hopi did with their solstice astronomical observation, the alignment of human sacred time with cosmic time, the recognition that the practitioner's ceremony has its maximum power when it is synchronized with the specific moment that the cosmos is offering. Man never known on Earth is beyond direct human knowing. The Wichita do not claim to know the Creator face. They know the morning star, which is the Creator's most visible representative in the human world. They build their ceremony around the specific moment of the morning star's appearance. They spend the entire night in sacred vigilance, so that when the star appears, the community is fully awake, fully prepared, fully present for the encounter. The Halig practitioner who conducts ceremony at the specific moment of maximum cosmic alignment, who treats the sacred calendar not as approximate timing but as precise sacred technology, is doing what the Wichita astronomers who tracked Venus's heliacal rising did, making the ceremony as powerful as the cosmos will allow. Kinikasis, man never known on Earth. The morning star is his face in our sky. Wichita sacred tradition. The Tonkawa language has no known relatives. The Wichita built grass lodges oriented to the east and tracked Venus across the southern plains sky. Both nations survived the full violence of the 19th century. The Tonkawa massacre of 1862 killed 2/3 of the remaining Tonkawa people. The Wichita were removed from Texas and resettled in Oklahoma. Both are still here. The wolf dance is still danced. The morning star still rises. Grand Rising, personal reading series Haligrisity or IQ Productions or June 2026.